I won't marry him. He's ancient. He probably can't even. Careful what you assume, little bird. The voice came from behind her, smooth as whiskey and twice as dangerous. Zara Hassan's heart stopped. She turned slowly, finding herself face to face with the man her uncle had sold her to. Kang Min-jun, Seoul's most ruthless businessman, stood in the doorway of the hotel's suite where she'd been locked for 3 days. At 40, he moved with the lethal grace of a predator, his dark eyes stripping away every defense she'd built. He should have repulsed her. Instead, when their eyes locked, something inside her chest cracked open, a recognition so deep it felt like coming home and falling off a cliff simultaneously. "Get dressed," he said quietly, his accented English making her shiver. "We have a wedding to attend." Welcome to Afro-Korean Stories TV, besties. If you click away now, I promise you'll spend the next week wondering how this impossible love story ends. So buckle up and stay till the end, because what you're about to witness is not your typical romance. This is obsession, redemption, and the kind of love that burns cities down. The wedding. The registry office was sterile and cold, nothing like the wedding Zara had dreamed of as a girl in Nairobi. No white dress, no flowers, no family crying tears of joy. Just her in jeans and a sweater, standing beside a stranger whose reputation made diplomats sweat. Kang Min-jun was everything the rumors promised. Tall, broad-shouldered, with perfectly styled black hair and an aura of controlled power. His black suit probably cost more than her family's house. His presence filled the entire room, making the official conducting the ceremony visibly nervous. But when he took her hand to slide on the ring, his touch was surprisingly gentle. His fingers trembled, just slightly, just enough for her to notice. "I do," she whispered, because what choice did she have? Her uncle's gambling debts had sealed her fate. "I do," Min-jun replied, his voice carrying the weight of a vow that meant something beyond the legal words. When he kissed her, it was supposed to be brief and meaningless. Instead, his lips lingered, his hand cupping her face with a tenderness that contradicted everything she knew about him. Heat flooded through her, unexpected and unwanted. She pulled back, gasping, and saw something flicker in his eyes, possession mixed with wonder, as if he'd found something he'd been searching for his entire life. The journey home. The car ride to his estate outside Seoul was silent. Zara pressed herself against the window, watching the city blur past, trying to understand how her life had imploded in 72 hours. Min-jun sat beside her, his thigh nearly touching hers in the confined space, his presence overwhelming. "You're afraid of me," he observed, not a question. "Wouldn't anyone be?" she shot back, finding courage in anger. His lips curved slightly. "Yes, they should be." The honesty startled her. She'd expected lies or threats, not this quiet acknowledgement of what he was. "Where are you taking me?" Her voice shook despite her efforts to sound strong. "Home, our home." The possessive pronoun sent chills down her spine. The morning after. She woke the next morning in a bedroom that looked like it belonged in a palace. Silk curtains, modern furniture with traditional Korean accents, a bed so large she'd barely made a dent in it. Sunlight streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows, overlooking manicured grounds that stretched for miles. She was still dressed in yesterday's clothes. Min-jun hadn't touched her beyond that kiss at the registry office. A soft knock interrupted her spiraling thoughts. "Breakfast is served, ma'am," a woman's voice called in English. Zara found designer clothes in the closet, all in her exact size. Someone had measured her while she'd been unconscious during the flight from Kenya. The level of planning was both impressive and terrifying. She dressed in soft wool pants and a cashmere sweater, then followed the smell of coffee through marble hallways lined with art worth more than small countries. The dining room was absurdly grand. Min-jun sat at a table meant for 20, reading something on his tablet, his suit jacket discarded and shirt sleeves rolled to reveal muscled forearms marked with subtle tattoos. He looked up when she entered, and that strange intensity returned, like he was memorizing her, cataloging every detail. "Sit," He gestured to the chair beside him, not at the far end but close, within touching distance. She sat because rebellion seemed pointless when security personnel patrolled the grounds outside. A server immediately appeared with food: eggs, rice, kimchi, fresh fruit, pastries that smelled like heaven. More food than she'd seen in weeks. "Eat," Min-jun commanded softly. "I'm not hungry." "You haven't eaten properly in 4 days. Eat." How did he know that? How long had he been watching her? She picked up her fork with trembling hands, hatting how her body betrayed her. The food was delicious, and her traitorous stomach demanded she consume everything. He watched her eat with that unsettling focus, occasionally sipping his coffee but mostly observing. "We need to discuss the terms of this arrangement," she said finally, forcing strength into her voice. "There are no terms. You are my wife." "A wife you bought like property." Something dangerous flickered across his face. "Your uncle sold you to a trafficking ring in Dubai. I intercepted the transaction. So yes, Zara, you could be grateful you're here instead of there. You could be grateful you're sitting in a mansion eating breakfast instead of being auctioned to the highest bidder." The words hit like ice water. She stared at him, searching for lies, finding only brutal truth. "Why?" she whispered. "Why would you do that?" He stood abruptly, buttoning his suit jacket with sharp movements. "Because I could. Because when I saw your photograph in those transaction files, something in me decided you were mine to protect." "That's not a reason." "It's the only reason that matters." He moved toward the door, then paused. "Your family has been relocated to a better neighborhood in Nairobi. Your mother no longer works at that factory. Your younger sisters are enrolled in private school. Consider it a wedding gift." He left before she could respond, leaving her with unwanted gratitude and growing confusion. Testing boundaries. 3 days later, Zara tested the boundaries of her gilded cage. True to his word, Min-jun had assigned her bodyguards, 2 silent, dangerous men who followed her into Seoul's shopping districts but maintained respectful distance. She found a bookstore tucked between luxury boutiques, drawn to the familiar comfort of stories. She was reaching for a novel when another hand touched the same book. "Sorry." She looked up into warm brown eyes and a friendly smile. "No worries." The man was young, maybe late 20s. With an easy charm. "Great choice. This author got me through some rough patches." His name was Marcus Cole, an American studying in Seoul. He was funny and kind, making her laugh with stories about navigating Korean bureaucracy. It was the first normal conversation she'd had since the wedding. She didn't notice Min-jun's car pulling up outside. Didn't see him emerge from a meeting and freeze when he spotted her through the window, laughing with another man. Didn't see his hands clench into fists or the murderous expression that crossed his face. When she finally left the bookstore 40 minutes later, Marcus walked beside her, still chatting about books they both loved. "Maybe we could grab coffee sometime," Marcus suggested hopefully. "Zara." Min-jun's voice cut through the afternoon like a blade. She spun around, heart leaping into her throat. He stood 10 feet away, hands in his pockets, expression perfectly blank. But his eyes burned with something dark and possessive that made her breath catch. "We're leaving," he said quietly, his voice dangerously soft. "I was just..." "Now." The single word carried absolute authority. Marcus, sensing danger with prey-animal instinct, stepped back with raised hands. "Hey, no problem, I should go anyway." Min-jun's gaze finally left Zara and fixed on Marcus. The temperature seemed to drop 20 degrees. "Yes, you should, and you should forget you ever met my wife." The word wife was said with such possessive finality that Marcus practically fled. Zara turned on Min-jun, anger overriding fear. That was completely unnecessary. "Was it?" He stepped closer, and she held her ground even though everything in her screamed to retreat. "He was just being friendly. We were talking about books." "He was flirting with my wife." Min-jun's voice remained that dangerous soft tone, fury barely restrained beneath it. "Touching what's mine." "I'm not your possession." He moved faster than she expected, closing the distance until she had to tilt her head back to maintain eye contact. He didn't touch her, but his proximity was overwhelming. "Aren't you? You wear my ring. You live in my home. You carry my name. What part of that suggests you're free to flirt with other men?" "I wasn't flirting." "He was, and you were smiling, laughing." Something raw flashed in his eyes. "Do you have any idea what it did to me, seeing another man make you happy, seeing you give him something you've never given me?" The confession shocked her into silence. "You're jealous," she realized aloud. His expression shuddered immediately. "Don't be absurd." "You are." She almost laughed at the impossibility. This powerful, dangerous man was jealous of a conversation. "I know enough about you," he said, leaning closer until his breath ghosted across her skin. "I know you smile with your whole face when you're genuinely happy. I know you're terrified but trying to be brave. I know you haven't called your family because you're ashamed, even though none of this is your fault. I know you read to escape reality. And I know that man made you laugh, and I wanted to break every bone in his body for it." Zara's heart hammered. "Why do you care?" "Because you're mine. Simple, absolute, terrifying in its intensity. And I don't share what's mine." The possessiveness should have frightened her. Instead, heat rushed through her body. She pressed her hands against his chest, meaning to push him away, but her fingers curled into his shirt instead. "This is insane. We don't even know each other." "Then let me know you." His hands came up to frame her face, gentle despite the intensity in his eyes. "Let me show you this doesn't have to be a prison." "Why?" she whispered. "Why do you care if I'm happy?" His thumb brushed across her lower lip, and she shivered. "Because your happiness has become essential to my existence. Because I look at you and feel something I thought died years ago. Because you're the first good thing that's happened to me in 2 decades, and I will do whatever it takes to keep you." The books. That evening, Zara discovered Min-jun had purchased every book she'd touched in the store. They appeared in her room, stacked neatly on a new bookshelf. No note, no explanation, just books and the knowledge that he'd been paying attention. She found him in his study, working late. The room was dark except for a desk lamp casting shadows across his face as he reviewed documents. She knocked softly on the doorframe. He looked up, surprise flickering across his features before smoothing into careful neutrality. "Thank you for the books," she said. His expression softened almost imperceptibly. "You're welcome." She should have left. Instead, she stepped inside, drawn by curiosity and something else she didn't want to examine. "Can I ask you something?" "Anything." "Why me? You could have walked away. Why did you marry me instead?" Min-jun set down his pen with careful precision. For a long moment he simply looked at her, and she saw something ancient in his eyes, recognition, longing, possession. "Because the moment I saw your photograph in those files, something in me recognized you." He stood, moving around the desk but maintaining distance. "I knew with absolute certainty that I would destroy anyone who tried to hurt you, so I did the only thing that would guarantee your safety. I made you untouchable by making you mine." "That's not love," she whispered. "Maybe not, but it's all I know how to give." He reached out slowly, giving her time to retreat and brushed a curl from her face. Teach me how to love you the way you deserve. I'll learn. For you, I'll learn." The gala. A week later, Min-jun took her to a charity gala despite her protests. He insisted Seoul's elite needed to see her as his wife, not just a rumor. She wore a gown he'd had custom-made, deep sapphire silk that hugged her curves and made her feel beautiful for the first time in months. When she'd emerged from her room, Min-jun had frozen mid-conversation on his phone. He'd stared at her for 10 full seconds before ending his call without saying goodbye. "You're stunning," he'd said roughly. "Absolutely stunning." The way he'd looked at her had stolen her breath, like she was the only woman in existence. "Stay close," he murmured now as they entered the ballroom, his hand possessive on her lower back. "Afraid someone will flirt with me again," she teased, the champagne loosening her tongue. His grip tightened fractionally. "Yes, terrified someone will look at you the way I do and realize what I've known from the beginning, that you're extraordinary." A woman approached before Zara could respond. Stunning, elegant, clearly familiar with Min-jun. "Min-jun oppa, it's been too long." Perfect English with a Korean accent. She turned to Zara with calculating eyes. "And you must be the new wife. How unexpected." The emphasis on unexpected made Zara's spine straighten. Min-jun's voice turned cold. "Careful, Jaewon." Jaewon smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "I'm only surprised you settled down so quickly. Some might think it was business rather than love." Some people should learn to keep their thoughts to themselves if they value their continued comfort. The threat was unmistakable. He guided Zara away, his hand sliding to her waist, pulling her closer. "Old girlfriend?" Zara asked. "Old mistake. One I made before I knew what I was looking for, before I knew you existed." "You talk like you've been waiting for me." "Haven't I been?" His eyes held hers. "My whole life has been violence and darkness. Then you appeared and suddenly I understood why I survived everything. It was to get to you, to this moment." "That's quite a line." "It's the truth." He led her onto the dance floor. "Stay with me tonight, not because you have to, because you want to." She realized with surprise that she did want to. Despite everything, the forced marriage, the control, the possessiveness, she wanted to stay by his side. "Okay," she whispered, "I'll stay." His arms tightened around her as they swayed to the music, and she felt his heart racing. The attack. The next morning, everything shattered. Zara was having breakfast alone when shouting erupted from Min-jun's office. She heard crashes, angry voices in Korean, then gunshots, 3 sharp cracks that made her blood run cold. Her bodyguards materialized immediately, weapons drawn, grabbing her arms. "What's happening?" she demanded. "Rival organization," one said tersely. "Come now." A wall panel slid open, revealing a panic room. But before they could get her inside, the office door burst open. Min-jun emerged, blood spattered across his white shirt. His expression was terrifying. Behind him, she glimpsed bodies on the floor. He held a gun in one hand. His other hand pressed against his side, where blood seeped between his fingers. "Get her out," he barked. "Now back entrance." "Min-jun, you're hurt." "I'm fine." He crossed to her in 3 strides, gripping her face between his hands. His palms were warm, sticky with blood. "Listen to me. They learned you're my weakness. They'll use you to get to me. You have to go somewhere safe." "I'm not your weakness." "You are." His eyes burned into hers with terrifying intensity. "You're the only thing in this world that can hurt me now, so you listen to these men and you stay alive. Understand?" She nodded, tears spilling down her cheeks. "I'll come for you," he promised, pressing a hard kiss to her forehead. "I'll always come for you." But they were too late. Men in black tactical gear stormed through the entrance, cutting off their escape. Her bodyguards opened fire, but there were too many. She saw both guards go down. "No!" Min-jun's roar was animalistic. He fired his weapon, taking down 2 attackers, moving toward her with single-minded focus. But someone hit him from behind with something heavy. He stumbled, blood pouring from a new wound on his head. "Min-jun!" she screamed as rough hands dragged her backward. He tried to get up, tried to reach her, even as blood obscured his vision. "I'll find you," he promised, his voice raw. "I'll burn this entire city to find you." Then something struck her head, and darkness swallowed everything. Captivity. She woke in an abandoned warehouse that smelled of rust and chemicals. Her head throbbed, and her hands were bound behind her back with zip ties that cut into her wrists. Voices spoke in Korean around her, angry and arguing. She caught Min-jun's name multiple times. One voice belonged to a woman, sharp and commanding. Zara's vision cleared slowly. She was tied to a metal chair. 5 people stood nearby, 4 men and 1 woman. The woman looked familiar. Recognition hit like ice water. "Jaewon, from the gala." "Ah, you're awake," Jaewon said in English, noticing her stirring. "Good, I was worried they hit you too hard." She approached with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. I remember you, Zara said. The old mistake. Jaewon's smile vanished. She backhanded Zara across the face, and stars exploded across her vision. Careful, one of the men warned. Boss said no permanent damage yet. She's disrespectful. Jaewon gripped Zara's chin roughly. Do you know what you've done? Min-jun was supposed to marry me. Unite our organizations. Then you appeared, some nobody from Africa, and ruined everything. I didn't ask for this, Zara said through split lips. He forced me into this marriage too. Liar, Jaewon's eyes flashed with jealousy and rage. I've known Min-jun for 15 years. I've never seen him look at anyone the way he looks at you, like you're air and he's drowning. He's not property, neither am I. Yet here we are. Jaewon released her roughly. He'll come for you, we're counting on it. And when he walks into our trap, my father's men will kill him. Then everything he built will be ours. Fear for Min-jun overwhelmed fear for herself. He'll kill you all first. We'll see. The hours that followed were the longest of Zara's life. She worked on the zip ties, ignoring the pain as she twisted and pulled, trying to create slack. She thought about Min-jun constantly. Was he alive? How badly had they hurt him? Would he really come for her? Yes, she knew with bone-deep certainty that he would come. The rescue. Outside, engines roared. Shouting intensified. Then gunfire, so much gunfire it sounded like warfare. Bullets punched through the warehouse walls. Her captors scattered for cover. The main door exploded inward in a shower of splinters and twisted metal. Through the smoke and chaos, she saw him. Min-jun moved like death itself. Every shot was precise, every movement calculated and lethal. His men flanked him, but he was at the front, taking the most risk, his eyes scanning desperately until they found her. Relief and fury crossed his face when their eyes met. He killed the man nearest her without hesitation, then cut her restraints with a knife. His hands were shaking as he freed her wrists. Are you hurt? His voice was hoarse, desperate. No, she saw the blood on him, so much blood. You're hurt. He pulled her against him, his heart hammering. If they touched you, if they hurt you. I'm okay. He drew back, checking her over with frantic hands, seeing the mark on her face where Jaewon had struck her. Something terrifying crossed his expression. Who? The single word carried a promise of violence. The woman, Jaewon. Min-jun's eyes went completely cold. He looked past Zara and spotted Jaewon trying to escape through a back exit. He moved faster than should have been possible for someone losing blood, crossing the warehouse in seconds. He grabbed Jaewon by her arm and yanked her back. You touched my wife, he said quietly in Korean, then switched to English. You took her, you hurt her. Min-jun, oppa, please. You should have known better. He released her with a shove toward his men. Take her to her father. Tell him if he ever threatens what's mine again, I'll erase his organization from existence, starting with her. Jaewon sobbed as they dragged her away. Gunfire reminded them the fight wasn't over. Min-jun shielded Zara's body with his, then lifted her into his arms despite his injuries and carried her through the carnage. She buried her face against his neck, feeling his pulse racing, smelling blood and gunpowder. His men provided cover as they reached an armored SUV. Min-jun placed her inside carefully, then collapsed beside her, his strength finally giving out. Min-jun! She caught him as he slumped, seeing how pale he'd become, how much blood soaked his clothes. I'm fine, he murmured, but his eyes were unfocused. You're not fine. Driver, hospital now. She pressed her hands against the worst wound on his side, trying to stop the bleeding. His hand came up to touch her face, leaving a smear of blood on her cheek. Found you, he whispered. Told you I would. You did. Now stay awake. We're going to the hospital. Love you, he said, his words slurring. In case I don't get to say it again, I love you. Don't you dare. Her voice was fierce, tears streaming down her face. Don't you dare say goodbye to me. You promised me we'd figure this out. You don't get to break that promise. He smiled faintly. Demanding woman. So you'd better survive this. His eyes drifted closed. The hospital. The hospital was chaos. Doctors rushed Min-jun into surgery immediately while Zara sat in a private waiting room, covered in his blood, shaking uncontrollably. His men surrounded her, creating a protective barrier. Hours passed. The sun set, then rose again. She refused to leave, refused food, refused everything except coffee that grew cold in her hands. A doctor finally emerged, looking exhausted. Mrs. Kang. She stood on shaking legs. Is he? He's stable. The surgery went well. He lost significant blood, but he'll recover. The doctor smiled slightly. He's incredibly strong. Most men wouldn't have survived what he endured. Relief hit her so hard, she nearly collapsed. Can I see him? He's sedated, but yes, follow me. Min-jun looked vulnerable in the hospital bed, something she'd never thought possible. He was always so commanding, so powerful. Now he looked human, with tubes and monitors attached to him, bandages wrapped around his torso and head. She pulled a chair beside his bed and took his hand carefully, mindful of the IV line. You'd better wake up, she whispered, because I have things to say to you and you need to hear them, so wake up. She stayed like that for hours, holding his hand, talking to him about everything and nothing. She told him about her childhood in Nairobi, about books she loved, about dreams she'd abandoned. She told him she'd been terrified when this started, but somehow, impossibly, she'd started feeling safe with him. And she told him she loved him. I love you, she repeated, her voice breaking. I don't know when it happened. Maybe at the gala or when you bought me those books or when you looked at me like I was the only thing that mattered. But I love you, so you have to wake up. You have to come back to me. His fingers twitched in hers. Awakening. 3 days later, Min-jun woke. Zara had fallen asleep in the chair beside his bed, her head resting on the mattress near his hand. He stirred, confused by his surroundings, and saw her first. Everything came rushing back. The attack, finding her in that warehouse, the terror that he'd been too late. He adjusted his hand, brushing her hair, and she woke instantly. Min-jun, she stood so fast the chair toppled backward. Oh, thank God. How do you feel? Should I call the doctor? He caught her hand, pulling her closer despite the protest of his injuries. You're here. Of course I'm here. Where else would I be? Safe, somewhere far from me. I am safe. I'm with you. He studied her face, seeing the exhaustion, the worry, the love she wasn't hiding anymore. I heard you, he said, his voice rough from disuse. When you were talking to me, I heard everything you said. Her breath caught. Everything. You love me. I do. She touched his face carefully, mindful of his injuries. I love you, Kang Min-jun. I love you so much it terrifies me. He pulled her down into a kiss despite the pain, needing to taste her, to confirm she was real and whole. She kissed him back carefully, her tears falling onto his face. Don't cry, he murmured against her lips. I thought I'd lost you, she finished, her voice breaking. I'm not going anywhere. He brushed away her tears. I told you, I'll always come for you. Death itself couldn't keep me away. She laughed through her tears. That's dramatic. It's true. His expression turned serious. Zara, when I saw them take you, when I couldn't reach you, I've never felt terror like that. I've been shot, stabbed, beaten within an inch of my life. None of it compared to the fear of losing you. You found me. I burned half the city searching. I called in every favor, threatened every contact, destroyed anyone who got in my way. His jaw clenched at the memory. I dismantled Jaiwon's organization. That seems harsh. She took you from me. She hit you. His eyes darkened. I showed mercy by letting her live. If she'd done worse, nothing would have saved her. The possessive intensity should have frightened her. Instead, it made her feel cherished, protected. You're a dangerous man, Kang Min-jun. Only to those who threaten what's mine. He pulled her closer despite his injuries. And you, wife, are mine. Completely, irrevocably mine. Yours, she agreed softly, and you're mine. Something shifted in his expression. Surprise, then wonder, then fierce satisfaction. Say it again. You're mine, not just because we're married, but because I choose you, because I want you, because I love you. He kissed her again, deeper this time, until nurses interrupted to check his vitals and scold them both. New beginnings. 2 weeks later, Min-jun was released with strict orders to rest. He ignored most of them, much to Zara's frustration. The estate had been completely renovated. New security systems, reinforced walls, a legitimate panic room. You're being paranoid, Zara said as he showed her the upgrades. I'm being careful, there's a difference. He wrapped his arms around her waist from behind. I won't risk you again, ever. She leaned back against him, feeling his heartbeat steady and strong. What happens now, with your business? I'm transitioning to legitimate operations. No more wars, no more violence. He turned her in his arms, meeting her eyes. I want a different life for us, for our future. That's a big change. You're worth it, you're worth everything. He hesitated, vulnerability crossing his features. If you wanted to leave, to go back to Kenya or anywhere else, I would let you go. I'd hate it. It would destroy me. But I'd do it because I love you more than I love keeping you. Zara touched his face, seeing the sincerity and fear in his eyes. I'm not going anywhere. Seoul is my home now. You're my home. Relief flooded his expression. You mean that? I mean it, though I have conditions. His eyebrows rose. Conditions. I want to go to university, study literature, maybe teach someday. She watched his reaction carefully. I need purpose beyond being your wife. Done. You'll start next semester at whichever university you choose. And I want to visit my family regularly. My mother, my sisters, they're still important to me. Of course, we'll go together as often as you want. And, she took a breath, I want a real marriage, not just living together but partnership. You don't make decisions about my life without consulting me. He considered this, then nodded slowly. That's fair. I'm used to controlling everything, but I'll learn to share decisions with you. That's all I ask. He kissed her softly. Anything else? Love me, just love me like you promised. That's the easiest condition of all. He swept her into his arms, ignoring her protest about his injuries. I'll love you until my last breath and probably beyond that too. Return to Kenya. 3 months later, Min-jun took Zara to Nairobi. He'd arranged everything, first-class flights, a luxury hotel, security that remained invisible but present. But he also gave her space to see her family privately, to reconnect without his overwhelming presence. Her mother wept when she saw them. You look so happy, she said in Swahili, touching Zara's face. So different from before. I am happy, Mama. Zara glanced at Min-jun, who waited patiently despite not understanding. He's not what I expected. Love rarely is, her mother smiled. He looks at you like you hung the moon. Later, after dinner, Min-jun pulled Zara's uncle aside for a private conversation. Zara watched through the window as Min-jun spoke, his expression serious. Her uncle nodded repeatedly, looking ashamed. What did you say to him? She asked later. I told him you're the most precious thing in my world, that he had a niece worth more than any debt and he threw her away. I told him he doesn't deserve your forgiveness, but he'd better spend his life earning it anyway. He paused. And I told him if he ever asks you for anything again, money, favors, anything, I'll personally ensure he regrets it. You owe him nothing. He owes you everything. Zara hugged him, overwhelmed by his protectiveness. Thank you. You're my wife. Protecting you is my privilege, not my burden. They spent a week in Nairobi, meeting her extended family, visiting her childhood places, helping her make peace with her past. On their last night, they walked along the beach at sunset. The water was warm, the breeze soft, and Zara felt more at peace than she had in years. Thank you for bringing me here, she said. Thank you for sharing this part of yourself with me. He pulled her close. I want to know everything about you, where you came from, what shaped you, what you dream about. What do you dream about? You, always you. He stopped walking, turning her to face him. I dream about our future, about children with your smile and your strength, about growing old together, about being worthy of the love you've given me. You are worthy. I'm trying to be. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. Zara's heart stopped. Min-jun. I know we're already married, but that wedding was forced, frightening. You deserved better. You deserve romance and choice and a proposal you can remember without fear. He opened the box, revealing a stunning ring, a deep sapphire surrounded by diamonds, the exact color of the dress she'd worn to the gala. Zara Hassan, love of my life, salvation of my soul, will you choose me? Not because you have to, but because you want to. Tears streamed down her face. Yes, yes, of course, yes. He slipped the ring onto her finger, not replacing the wedding band, but complementing it. Then he kissed her as the sun set over the ocean, painting the sky in gold and crimson. I love you, he whispered against her lips in Korean, then English. I love you too, so